Firstly, we would like to welcome everyone to this particular discussion, where the first edition of Izaad, the IP demo day of InstantPost. So before we begin, Akhil, can you tell us a little bit about the company itself?
Thanks, Arvind. Yeah, let me begin. I will share my screen. Uh, Welcome everyone to yet another Instant Post demo day, and we are excited to present and talk about IP portfolio of Instant Post in today's demo day. So let me begin by introducing Instant Post to everyone, and let me start with the whole overall idea that we have at Instant Post. So our idea is very simple in nature. It's about disrupting the print industry by allowing people to place their print orders online without any manual intervention by walking up to a kiosk and speaking to a print shop owner. And once they have placed the order online, we would want to offer them two options. One is to take prints over a self-service printing kiosk where they can walk up to a kiosk, authenticate themselves, identify their print order, and it would immediately start printing for them, thereby eliminating any middlemen in the process. However, there are obviously type of prints where manual intervention is required, and for that we provide another option to walk up to a managed print shop of ours in place of a self-service printing kiosk, where an operator would handle semi-automated machines in order to accomplish the job for the customer. So the customers could either walk up to pick up their jobs from the management shop, or they could request a delivery. So in either of the cases, the whole process is fully automated till the time of printing, and only the only manual steps in this case are when you have to get it delivered, you have to get your print packed. So that is the only point where a manual intervention happens, or if there is a post printing processing required. So these are the kind of activities that would happen manually, and then the order would be delivered. So the benefit of using Instant Post for the customers would be that they can maintain their privacy. Nobody gets to know what they are printing. It depends on their level of discretion requested. They could walk up to the kiosk and completely eliminate middlemen, or they could get the order through a management shop where only the last mile delivery and processing is where a manual intervention is involved. So apart from this, Instant Post aims at making it a super fast service where you don't have to wait for the print shop to be open or to be functional for you. Just the way you would walk up to an ATM, irrespective of the fact the banks are open or not, and transact at will. Similarly, we want to bring the same experience into the printing infrastructure. And all of this won't make sense if we charge a premium to our customers. So that is the third USP we want to offer to our customers, that all of this would come at a competitive price where the customers don't feel burdened while availing Instant Post services. So this is the overall idea we have. And then let's talk about our target market, which is education sector at this moment. Well, this does not mean that we cannot venture into other sectors, but for now we are planning to target onto the education sector. So talking about the numbers, today education sector is hosting close to 30 crore students and around 1 crore teachers in the ecosystem. And there we have close to around 15 to 16 lakh institutions, both schools and colleges included. And ultimately, the interesting part of this sector is the growth. So more or less, almost everywhere, these numbers are growing in double digits, and as much as the public sector expenditure. So Indian government has been spending close to a good part of their annual budget onto education, and that has been growing around 22% every year. So there's a really huge market to capture, and it's growing at a rapid pace. So as per our estimate, a consumer in education sector spends close to 10 rupees per month, which gives us roughly 300 crore market size. And this market is mostly unorganized. There are no branded players. They are localized big players, but they still don't have an influence over the overall education sector of India. So that's where we see the opportunity and would want to step in. So moving ahead, let's talk about the kind of offerings we would want to go ahead with. So we have uh, two major verticals we're launching at this moment: the loose print vertical, where we want to offer a photo and document printing, which the customers can avail through the self-service print kiosk. And then we have the bound prints vertical, where we would want to offer albums and book printing, wherein they may have to get it delivered through them directly, or they can pick it up from one of our management shops, because of the nature of these prints, where a manual intervention required for post-print processing, like binding, finishing, and then obviously packing for final delivery. Apart from these, we also have a third experimental vertical of targeted bound prints, where we plan to launch magazines which will be customizable as per the interest of the subscriber. So anyone who subscribes for our magazine will be able to choose topics of their interest, and we would we would make our best effort to curate a magazine at desired frequency, be it weekly or monthly, to be able to deliver these magazines containing the exact set of topics, articles on exact set of topics, which are of interest to the subscriber, and also to make sure that even the advertisements that we show on the magazine are targeted towards the interest area of the end consumer, benefiting both the consumer as well as the advertiser, to make sure there are no irrelevant expenditures on advertising which go to irrelevant audience per se. So this is the overall concept we have at this moment, and we are looking forward to launch it very soon into the market. So that's about it from my side, and I would like to hand over to you, Shelby.
Thank you so much, Akhil. Uh, hey everyone. When we talk about the term property, the first thing that comes to our mind is the value attached to it, that it belongs to someone, or that it is tangible in nature, and that it accrues some legal right to own and use it. But do you know there is something called intellectual property, which refers to the creation of mind, and it is as important as other property. As an inventor, owner, or author of such intellectual property, you have rights similar to in case of any other physical property. So today topic of discussion on intellectual property in Izaad episode 1 is hosted by IP Wing at InstantPost. I, Shelby Singh, along with Arvind Sankar, welcome you all to today's dialogue. In today's discussion, we will discuss the advantages of an IP in startup. Why is it important? What new methods are being employed by Instant Post? So, moving further with the discussion, I would like to ask Arvind that why is it important for Instant Post to have an IP division, especially when other startups tend to ignore it by not keeping it as a priority? So, Arvind, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Shelby. So yeah, the first question which might be in everyone's mind is why do we exist at all? Why do we have a separate department or a separate wing for working upon protecting intellectual property? So firstly, let me give you a background. Today, in most of the startups, they're engaged in the problems which are loudly announcing themselves in front of the startups and the founders. They include things like building up the product, they're designing it and improving the product, putting innovation into the product, and presenting it to the public, presenting it to the customers, and of course, wooing the investors is also an important problem in front of them, and hiring the right people, etc., etc. There are many issues which are apparent to such startups and founders, and naturally, they spend a lot of their time, attention, and resources and they invest so many things into those issues, solving those issues. So naturally, an intellectual property gets ignored. Apart Another reason to that would be its passive nature. Just like any other aspect of law, intellectual property is also ignored because people don't see the significance of the protection aspect unless they run into some problem. They hit a problem. So such things are apparent and it often gets ignored, which is a grave mistake which startups generally make. And it is especially important for a startup like InstantPost, which involves itself into creation of technology, creation of new business models, and especially when it's entering into the printing industry with a disruptive model which can potentially change the printing landscape in the country. When it is coming with such new ideas, revolutionary ideas, it's very important for such a company to protect its intellectual property, because IP protection is what will serve as a backbone to such companies. It's paramount for such companies to spend a lot of time and resources into protecting their intellectual property. And there are many advantages associated to it. And I would like to see it as both as a shield and a sword. A shield in terms of protecting itself from other competitors and other attacks which it might receive in terms of developing a technology, and a sword in terms of gaining exclusivity over the technology itself, the invention itself. So it is hence, since it's a technology driven company, we come up with new developments at a very frequent basis, and it's important to catch up and protect all of those inventions, and make them of fully utilize their purpose in the market. So that is why we exist. We strive to protect all the inventions, all the creativity which constitutes the company itself. uh, Moving on, uh, there are certain problems associated with intellectual property, as in why do we seek IP protection itself? That's one thing which might come to mind to the viewers. So shall we, in the interest of the viewers, can you explain why IP protection is important? What are the advantages associated with it? What do they accrue out of protecting their intellectual property?
Sure, Arvind. First of all, I must say that your shield and sword analogy was really very apt. Also, like you said, Arvind, understandably, startups can often focus their initial efforts on raising finance and shortcuts, so which can be very dangerous in long term. So, a company should invest a lot in protecting their IPs, because IP can be the USP of the product or service, and it helps create a sustainable and defensible differentiator for the company. By owning an IP, a high entry barrier is created, thereby helping you to grow your venture faster with respect to your competitors' offerings. Also, IP is given higher weightage by investors, and it creates good value for your venture. It can sometimes be even more important to check that you are not inadvertently infringing third party IPs, which could spell on an early end to a new entrepreneur. So IP assumes even greater significance at Instant Post as a technology startup where new innovations are being made every day. There is a huge brand value attached to IP in technology sector. So it gives investors, clients, and other stakeholders a tremendous sense of confidence in your commitment and passion to not just succeed, but also become a market leader in your area of operations. There can be other advantages attached to it, as these other negative rights, as it prevents others from copying what you say is your IP, whether it be a trademark or an invention. There are other exclusive rights that helps you to maintain monopoly on the invention for a specified period of time. Also, you can further license it and you can have other financial advantages. So yeah, this will be all the advantages which are attached to the to why one should seek the protection in IP. So moving further, I would want to ask you, Arvind, that what do you think how one should go on protecting its IP and aspects of it? Also, since you're here for 5 months as an intern at Instant Post, so you have had a greater experience than me since I am here only for 1 month. So, can you please elaborate as how we are doing things differently and how we function here to protect our IP at Instant Post?
Yeah, sure, Shelby. Obviously, in order to enjoy or in order to appreciate all the benefits which you just enlisted right now, we need to form a way to protect all those intellectual properties. And the simplest way to identify or go about protecting intellectual property of a product is to first look out for all the inventive aspects of that particular product, or all the aspects which distinguish your product from the ones which are existing in the market. The best example which I would like to give for following this particular process is like think of a bottle, think of a drink, let's say a sports drink in this particular case. Now, the logo, the name of the particular drink can be protected under trademarks. You can always trademark the names and get a brand, create a brand, protectable brand, and you use it to your advantage in the market. Similarly, you can also protect the shape of the bottle if it provides any aesthetic value. You can protect the shape, the design of the bottle, and other anything related to the shape or the shape, size of or the design. They can be protected through designs themselves. And furthermore, you can also protect their composition. Let's say the sports drink performs significantly better than others in the market. Then you can protect the composition of that particular sports drink as well through patents. As you can see in this example, a product can be completely enveloped by intellectual property. The product itself is an asset to you, and when you go towards protecting the intellectual property, you can essentially find corollary protections along with the product, as evident from the example which I gave. So you can cover basically every aspect, every perspective or of protection. I mean, protection can be taken at from every perspective of that particular product. Uh, Moving on, we should also discuss about the special approach which we are taking in for protecting intellectual property at Instant Post. So I and Shelby are, as you might have guessed, we are interns in the company. In fact, every department over here is managed or run by interns. We interns spend most of our time working towards the goals of Instant Post. Now, as the IP intern, we have to collaborate with every other department in order to understand the inventions, in order to understand what they're doing, and to find strategies first to identify and then to formulate strategies in order to in order to protect intellectual property, or at least get a holistic perspective of protecting intellectual property. And that's what we do over here. We collaborate. We hold meetings with every department. We hold weekly meetings, and where we discuss with the directors, the inventors themselves. We discuss the progress of the design. We take an input as to why these designs are advantageous, and where we collaborate and come up with a particular a scheme for protecting intellectual property of individual products. And as we are a startup, we also happen to be availing the benefits of this startup uh, intellectual property program scheme, which essentially allows startups to avail professional services in order to protect intellectual property. These professionals are called facilitators, and we also enjoy the benefits of such a facilitator. So essentially, we as interns, we discuss, we meet up, we formulate strategies, we draft patents and applications ourselves, and then present it to the facilitator, who would provide professional feedback. So this is a process which we use, which we engage in order to protect intellectual property at InstantPost. And again, it's very important uh, since we are at, again, a technological company. We come up with creative solutions. We come up with inventions at a very rapid pace. So it's very important for us in the IP wing to continually discuss with the other departments, the mechanical department, to in order to ascertain what all the solutions they're coming up with, and to keep up to date with the progress over there, and accordingly we amend the strategies and cope up with protecting the intellectual property as per the change, the pace of development in the respective departments. So it's a very interesting process which we employ over here, and Shelby, I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy the rest of your internship period. So you can
Sure,
really look forward to it.
sure. Uh, Arvind, one more thing. Would you please mention a little information? Means, can you please give little information to our listeners about SIPP scheme?
Yeah, so the SIPP scheme was first proposed by the Department of Industrial Development, which came up with the scheme to provide free professional services to startups like InstantPost. So any startup can avail free services from the patent agents registered in the patent office. So these professionals, as I mentioned earlier, are called facilitators, and we have been allotted one such facilitator to guide us in protecting our intellectual property. So since we are a startup, we are able to avail we are able to avail the benefits of that particular scheme. For again, for the interest of the listeners over here, before we get down to the progress we have made in terms of protecting our intellectual property, can you briefly discuss or explain what are the types of intellectual property, and what are patents specifically? What can be patented, and why should one, be it an individual inventor or a startup, go for protecting their inventions through patents?
Oh, okay, sure. Tuning with the changing industrial world, the IPRs have continued to strengthen its position in India. So, patent is just one of the IPRs. There are other IPRs as the trademarks and the copyright, industrial designs, etc. So, a patent is a right granted by government to investors in order to exclude others from making, using, or offering for sale or selling the patented invention. This means that you get total control over your patented invention and got to decide who can use it. So, without the covering shell of patent, extensive spending of R&D would be less, or it will go insignificant, which will limit the chances of technological growth. Such companies would hesitate in spending bulk amount on research activities, as any other third party can easily exploit their new development. And this is the scenario when there are no IPR rights available. So yeah, that's it. So Arvind, you have some patent drafting experience at Instant Post. Can you please elaborate upon what you have done so far?
Yeah, the effort so far has not been mine alone. I have been held by everyone in the instant post community, and yeah. So the work done so far. We have filed up to four patents so far on various aspects of the printing process itself. So where we have applied for patents in the aspects of binding, that would include everything from gluing a stack of sheets to binding to adding a book cover to it, and finally trimming it to the right shape and size. And also the main intention behind these intentions were firstly to cut the costs of processing each orders. That is, in this particular case, the orders would be of bound printed material. So here, every particular invention over here is aimed at reducing costs, reducing time of processing each particular order, and in turn making themselves available and for taking in more orders and becoming more and more efficient. So an example, best example of that would be of the width adjustable nozzle. So uh, here instead of making the operator to change the size of the nozzle according to each book or each order, which may have different width sizes of the spine. Instead of replacing it time and again, we try to build a width adjustable nozzle, which you can very easily adjust according to the thickness of the spine. So this is just one example of how we are trying to save costs and time, and of course taking more orders from the public. Uh, Apart from that, we also have the binding machine, the trimming machine, which also heavily rely upon the same intentions, the same goals. That is to save costs and time. And of course, we have the a mold for hot melter. This is now this is again to reduce cost by saving the glue, which might be wasted throughout the printing process. Apart from these, we also plan on we also have many other inventions which we are still working upon. We are still drafting the specifications, and you might be able to see them in the coming few months. So moving on, yeah, again in the interest of the audience here, yeah, before that, let me mention that we also have filed for certain trademarks in order to protect the brand names which we might come up with. So, yeah, in the interest of the listeners over here, Shelby, can you briefly talk a little bit about trademarks, why people apply for trademarks? What is the utility of trademarking anything, be it a brand name or a company's name?
Uh, okay, sure, Arvind. So, registered trademark gives uniqueness to a brand, which will help you stand out and sets a brand apart from the crowd. So, also having registered trademark will give you right to use it on all the products which one has registered under your ownership, and hence prove that product belongs to you, and you have the right to sell, modify, and use that product however you want. Your registered trademark will remain with you forever. So it's like buying your favorite ice cream once and eating it forever. However, ice cream won't last that long, so don't even try, please. Uh, so, in short, trademarks are valuable. As your business grows, your trademarks value will also grow. So, Arvind, can you please elaborate on trademarks at Instant Post?
Yeah, so far we have only managed to apply for one particular trademark, that is the company's name itself. However, we have many more brand names in mind. For each of those inventions, we plan on trademarking their brand names and utilizing them. Uh, but apart from that, the interesting thing which Shelby already mentioned is that each of these intellectual properties are assets. They're intangible assets to the company. They are advantageous in many ways. They can be traded, they can be licensed. It's equivalent to an asset, and of course, it helps in building the financial position of a company, and there are many advantages associated with it. And yeah, as a tech company, we have already filed for so many intellectual properties that we have, and there are many more to come. And there are many more patents, as I mentioned earlier, and there are many more trademarks which we are going to file. So we would like to tune in the next edition as well in order to see the progress we have made. But for now, this is what we can present to you. This is the results we have achieved so far. There are many more to come though. So yeah, with that, I think it's the floor is open to questions. So if you guys have any questions or any ideas which we can discuss, we are really open to it. We are looking for a discussion right now. So anyone with any questions?
Hi, Arvind. Thanks for the presentation. And I would like to understand that what exactly is the extent of protection that is offered by intellectual property, and how impactful are these registrations that we take?
So, firstly, it depends upon the goals of the company itself. Now, a company, if it does not want to spend a lot of money or time into it, it can go for a defensive sort of protection. So, an example of that would be uh, of filing for a patent, for making an application for a patent, but stopping at the publication phase. Now, as you may understand, the process is something like this. First, you need to apply for a patent, which will then you need to request for it to be published to the public. After it's published, you can request for an examination, and once the examination is successful, your patent will be granted. Now, depending upon the goals of the company, they can either choose to stop at as soon as it's published, or go ahead with the examination and get the patent granted. Now, if the process is halted at the publication stage itself, that means that no one else can file a suit against you. No one else can claim that your invention already existed and it infringes upon rights of the third parties. So that is something called a defensive publication. If you want to if you move further to the examination phase and get your patents granted, then then you yourself can file a suit against anyone or attack anyone uh, by saying that that particular person is encroaching your right. So it actually depends upon the goals of the business itself, whether they want to stop at the publication phase and give go do away with the right of suing someone, or they want to go ahead, get the patent granted, and then see if they can they see if they can say that someone else is encroaching your right. And yeah, if it is granted, then it can be utilized in various different ways, and it's very powerful. So I'd like to give you an anecdote of the Kodak company. I don't remember the name of the other smaller company. However, the story is something like this. The smaller company created some sort of a camera, a new invention on a camera. And it so happened that Kodak also copied the very same concept, the very same camera, whichever had been claimed in the patent, and it managed to distribute the copied version of the camera to a huge number to the mass public. The small company was initially hesitant upon filing a suit against a big company like Kodak, and it initially was hesitant. However, it decided to file a suit anyway, irrespective of how much damage it might incur. They spent millions of dollars in the lawsuit, and after 3 years, they did manage to secure a victory. Uh, Not only the court made Kodak pay huge sums of money, not to cover the litigation cost as well as the loss incurred due to infringement of the patent. I don't exactly remember the amount, but it was really huge. Not only that, the court also ordered Kodak to call back all the cameras which it had sold, all the duplicate cameras which it had sold. And if you see today, Kodak is not in the business of creating cameras, though it may make photos and films and all. It is not in the business of creating cameras, selling cameras itself. So that's how powerful patents are. If that answers your question.
Thanks, Arvind. Yeah, that does answer that question. And I would like to ask another question in continuation to it. So, in India, are there any success stories where smaller companies have been able to leverage on their IP portfolio in a similar situation?
Shall we do you know of any? Nothing's coming to my mind as of now.
Uh, I cannot think of patents as of now, but there have been small startups which were very small in the beginning, but later on they grew. For example, Make My Trip, Flipkart, Zomato. So they have developed their intangible asset in such a way that their trademark has got a lot of value, a lot of goodwill in it now. So they can have this kind of structure. Now they have grown into a big company, so this helps them to get hold of the investors and other financial benefits from the government itself for having they can have tax reductions also if they hold some intangible assets like trademarks or parents itself. So yeah, I think that's that is one thing that comes to my mind for now. But I'm very sure there must be many success stories in India regarding this asserting their rights in terms of enforcements of patents and the trademarks as well. So
And to add on to that, patents are not only powerful in terms of enforcing or preventing others to duplicate your particular invention. It is also powerful with regards to as it serves as a measure of innovation itself. Now look at a company like Asian Paints. Now Asian Paints is a paint company. It creates different kinds of paints and it sells it to the public. And if you look at the market, of course there are very few players. Maybe that is a reason why it is able to sustain. But another reason which I would like to say is why it is sustaining is because it is one of the most innovative companies. It has featured in the top 10 highest patent applications for during the previous year, if I'm not wrong. So that is a level that is how much intellectual property protection can take you as a company, even if it's a company which does not require a lot of innovation or even at the face of it, you cannot really see how Asian Paints was able to come up with so many patents on paints itself. Uh, It's hard to imagine that, and yet it managed to do that. And I firmly believe that is the reason why it is able to stay at the top of its industry. The since such since intellectual properties serve as a measure of innovation, I mean, what I mean to say is that is why intellectual property serves as a measure of innovation. The more innovative the company, the more likely it is to sustain, and the more likely it is to stay on top. So
Okay, that's an interesting perspective on Asian paints. Thanks for that, Arvind.
yeah, yeah. So that is how powerful intellectual property is, not only in terms of protecting or preventing anyone to duplicate, but also in terms of progress in the company. That's how a company can take a step forward and expand.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, any more questions or any
Mm.
more ideas for discussion?
Hello, Arvind. I will like to ask a question. Is there any company? Is there any facility provided by Indian government for the startups to reduce the time and cost of filing a patent?
Yes, there in fact is
Yeah,
the
let me take that question.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, the facility is the expedited examination. You can reduce your time with the expedited examinations. Also, you can yeah, early publication also. This is one more thing. So your publication takes around 48 months after the filing date. So you can publish it early by giving some charges, but obviously that costs a lot more than the normal process. But yeah, two things: the publication and the examination can significantly reduce your time. So I hope that answer your question.
Yeah, that answer my question. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Let's just wrap up, I guess. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us and engaging in the dialogue. Um, Arvind, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, so yeah, as we have seen in the past a few the past 40 minutes, intellectual property is important, and it is certainly something which cannot be ignored. And as a very recent startup, we have been already making significant leaps towards protecting our intellectual property. We have applied for 4 patents and one particular trademark. However, there are many more to come. So stay tuned in to the next edition of Izaad, where you'll find out at what pace Instant Post has been creating and innovating. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us in this edition, and let's hope you join us in the next one as well. So thank you.